The church bell's mournful toll echoed through the dusty streets of Millcreek, Wyoming Territory, 1878, as Zara Zimmerman stood motionless before the fresh grave. The black veil covering her face couldn't hide the silent tears streaming down her cheeks, but she made no sound, not since the townsfolk had begun to whisper. "Shameful display," Mrs. Hollister muttered loudly enough for Zara to hear. 3 months a widow and still weeping like it happened yesterday. Henry Zimmerman deserves more dignity in death than that. Zara clutched her handkerchief tighter, the last connection to the husband who'd been taken so suddenly by the typhoid outbreak. At 26, she hadn't expected to be alone, managing their small ranch outside of town with only memories to keep her company. Each Sunday, she made this pilgrimage to Henry's grave, and each Sunday the whispers grew louder. "A proper widow shows strength," another voice added. "My cousin Martha lost her husband at Gettysburg and never shed a tear in public." The cemetery was emptying as townsfolk headed to Sunday dinner, leaving Zara in her grief. She didn't notice the tall figure watching from beneath the shade of a cottonwood tree, or the way his eyes narrowed at the cruel words thrown her way. Logan Frost had been in Millcreek for only 3 days, long enough to know he didn't care for the way certain folks conducted themselves. He'd taken a job at the Rockingham Ranch, breaking horses and hoping to leave behind the memories that had chased him from Montana. At 32, he'd seen enough of life to recognize genuine pain when he saw it. As the last of the churchgoers disappeared down the dirt road, Zara finally allowed herself to sink to her knees beside the grave. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs that tore at Logan's heart. Without conscious thought, he found himself crossing the cemetery, boots crunching on the sun-baked ground. "Madam," he said softly, stopping a respectful distance away. Zara startled, hastily wiping at her tears and struggling to her feet. "I was just leaving," she said, voice trembling. "I don't mean to be a bother." Logan removed his hat, revealing thick brown hair that curled slightly at the nape of his neck. "You're no bother at all. Those folks had no right to speak to you that way. You heard." Her cheeks flushed beneath the veil. "I did, and I'd like to say they're wrong." He offered a clean bandana from his pocket. "My ma always told me tears are how the heart speaks when words fail." Zara hesitated before accepting it. "Thank you, Mr. Frost. Logan Frost, just hired on at the Rockingham. That's Wallace McCreary's place. Good man." She dabbed at her eyes beneath the veil. "I'm Zara Zimmerman." "I know who you are, Mrs. Zimmerman. Heard about your ranch and your loss." He glanced at the headstone. "Don't let them shame you for grieving. It ain't natural to hold it all inside." Fresh tears welled in Zara's eyes. "Everyone says I should be stronger." "Being strong doesn't mean not feeling," Logan said, his voice gentle but firm. He stepped closer, seeing the tears spilling onto her cheeks. With a gentle touch, he lifted her veil and wiped the moisture away with his thumb. "Cry with me, Mrs. Zimmerman. There's no shame in it." Something in his kind eyes broke the dam inside her. For the first time in months, Zara allowed herself to truly weep, not in solitude but in the presence of this stranger who offered understanding instead of judgment. When her legs threatened to give way, Logan's steady hands caught her elbows, supporting her weight without overstepping. "I miss him so much," she whispered. "I know," Logan replied, and something in his voice told her he truly did understand. After her tears subsided, Logan walked her to her wagon, helping her up onto the seat with careful hands. "Will you be all right driving home alone?" Zara nodded, regaining her composure. "I've been doing it every Sunday. But thank you, Mr. Frost. Your kindness means more than you know." "If you ever need help out at your place, I'm free Sundays," he offered, then added quickly, "just as a neighbor, no strings." "I couldn't impose, it's no imposition, just an offer." He stepped back, replacing his hat. "Safe journey, Mrs. Zimmerman." As Zara drove away, she glanced back to see Logan standing there, watching until she turned the bend in the road. For the first time since Henry's death, she felt something besides grief, a flicker of warmth that both comforted and confused her. Logan kept his word. The following Sunday, after the church service, he rode out to the Zimmerman ranch. It was a modest spread 40 acres with a small but well-built cabin, a barn in need of repair, and a corral holding a handful of horses. He found Zara in the garden, kneeling among rows of vegetables, her black dress dusted with soil. "Afternoon, Mrs. Zimmerman," he called, dismounting and leading his horse to the hitching post. Zara looked up, surprise evident in her blue eyes. "Mr. Frost, I didn't expect you'd actually come." "I'm a man of my word." He gestured to the barn. "That roof could use some patching before winter sets in. Thought I might take a look if you're agreeable." She hesitated, aware of how it might appear to have a single man at her property. Yet the barn did need repairs, and hiring help was beyond her means right now. "I'd be grateful," she finally said, "but you must let me provide supper afterward." Logan tipped his hat. "That's more than fair." They fell into an easy routine over the following weeks. Each Sunday, Logan would arrive after church, tackle whatever repairs were most pressing, and then join Zara for a simple meal. Their conversations, initially stilted and formal, gradually relaxed into genuine friendship. "Henry always meant to expand the chicken coop," Zara explained one afternoon as they sat on the porch, drinking lemonade after Logan had spent hours mending fences. "We had plans for so many things." "He sounds like he was a good man," Logan replied. "The best." Zara's voice held sorrow but not the raw pain of their first meeting. "We were childhood sweethearts, married at 18. I never imagined life without him." Logan nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I lost someone too. Different circumstances, but the emptiness feels the same, I reckon." Zara studied him, noticing how the afternoon light caught the flecks of gold in his hazel eyes. "Who did you lose, if you don't mind my asking?" "My wife Caroline, and our daughter Emma." His voice grew rough. 5 years ago, diphtheria took them both within a week of each other." "Oh, Logan." Without thinking, Zara reached across and placed her hand on his. "I'm so sorry." "That's why I understood your tears," he admitted, "because I've shed plenty of my own." Their eyes met, a moment of perfect understanding passing between them. Neither moved to break the connection, until the distant rumble of a wagon intruded on their quiet moment. The wagon belonged to Millcreek's most notorious gossip, Eunice Pettigrew, who happened to be passing by, but clearly had detoured specifically to investigate Logan's regular Sunday visits. Her prying questions about their arrangement left Zara flustered and Logan quietly fuming. After Mrs. Pettigrew departed, promising to remember them in her prayers, Zara's face flamed with embarrassment. "I'm sorry you've been drawn into town gossip," she said. "Perhaps it would be best if—" "Don't say it," Logan interrupted. "I don't give a damn what those busybodies think. But your reputation is mine to worry about." His jaw was set stubbornly. "Unless you're asking me to stop coming because you want me to, not because of what others might say." Zara looked away. "It's not that. I've come to value your company more than I should, perhaps." The admission hung between them, fraught with meaning. Logan took a step closer. "There's no timetable for grief, Zara, and no rule saying when it's proper to feel something new. Isn't there?" She whispered. "Everyone seems to think so. Everyone isn't standing in your boots." He gently turned her face toward him. "Or mine." For a breathless moment, Zara thought he might kiss her. The realization that she wanted him to both terrified and exhilarated her. Instead, Logan stepped back, respecting the invisible boundaries between them. "I should head back to the ranch," he said, voice gruff. "See you next Sunday," she nodded, unable to trust her voice, watching as he rode away with conflicted emotions churning inside her. The following Sunday, Logan didn't come. Zara told herself it was for the best, even as disappointment settled heavy in her chest. She'd grown too dependent on his visits, too accustomed to his quiet strength and easy companionship. Perhaps Mrs. Pettigrew's visit had made him reconsider the wisdom of their friendship. When Monday passed without word, and then Tuesday, Zara forced herself to accept that Logan had decided to distance himself. She couldn't blame him. A widower with his own painful past didn't need the complications of a widow still wrestling with grief. On Wednesday afternoon, as Zara was collecting eggs from the henhouse, the sound of approaching hoofbeats made her heart leap with irrational hope. But it wasn't Logan who rode into her yard, it was Wallace McCreary, owner of the Rockingham. "Afternoon, Mrs. Zimmerman," he called, dismounting stiffly. McCreary was in his 60s, a respected rancher who'd been kind to Zara after Henry's passing. "Mr. McCreary," she greeted him, setting down her basket, "what brings you this way? It's about Logan Frost." His expression was grave. "There was an accident Sunday morning. Bad-tempered stallion threw him into a fence post. He's been laid up with a concussion and some broken ribs." The news hit Zara like a physical blow. Will he recover? "Doc Patterson says he will, but he's hurting something fierce. Stubborn fool was trying to get on his horse this morning, saying he needed to get word to you." McCreary shook his head. "I told him I'd come myself." "Thank you," Zara managed, her mind already racing. Would it be proper for me to visit him?" McCreary's weathered face softened. "I reckon propriety matters less than kindness in times like these. My wife's been looking after him, so there's no cause for gossip." "You're welcome any time, Mrs. Zimmerman." Zara didn't hesitate. The next morning she hitched her wagon and drove to the Rockingham, a basket of fresh bread, preserves, and healing herbs packed carefully beside her. She found Logan in a small cabin near the main house, propped up on pillows, his face pale beneath his tan. "You came," he said, eyes brightening despite the pain evident in his expression. "Of course I came." She approached his bedside, noticing the bandages wrapped around his torso. "You gave everyone quite a scare." "Not my finest moment," he admitted with a wince. "That stallion had other ideas about being ridden. Mr. McCreary said you were trying to come see me." Zara busied herself arranging the items she'd brought, avoiding his gaze. "That wasn't very sensible. I didn't want you thinking I'd abandoned our arrangement." His hand reached for hers, stopping her nervous movements. "I gave my word I'd be there Sundays." The touch of his calloused fingers against her skin sent warmth spreading up her arm. "Your health matters more than any promise, Logan." His name felt intimate on her lips, and she realized it was the first time she'd used it to his face rather than thinking it privately. Logan's eyes darkened slightly, his thumb tracing circles on the back of her hand. "Hearing you say my name makes the pain worth it," he murmured. Mrs. McCreary's arrival interrupted the charged moment between them. The older woman assessed the situation with knowing eyes, but said nothing beyond offering Zara tea and updating her on Logan's condition. Zara began visiting daily, bringing food and books to pass the time during Logan's recovery. The McCreary's presence provided the propriety needed to quiet potential gossip, though Zara found herself caring less about what others might think with each passing day. During those quiet afternoons, Logan shared stories of his life before Millcreek, his childhood in Missouri, his time as a cavalry scout during the war, his brief happiness with Caroline and Emma in Montana. In turn, Zara opened up about her own past, her dreams of children that had never materialized with Henry, her uncertainty about the future. "What will you do with the ranch?" Logan asked one afternoon, 3 weeks into his recovery. He was sitting up now, moving around more, though still tender. "I don't know," Zara admitted. "I can manage it day to day, but the larger tasks." She sighed. "I've had offers to buy it, but it was Henry's dream. Selling feels like letting go of him completely." Logan was quiet for a moment. "Keeping the ranch and letting go of the pain aren't mutually exclusive, Zara. You can honor his memory without clinging to the grief." "Is that what you did, after Caroline and Emma, eventually?" His eyes held a distant look. "For 2 years I wandered, taking whatever work came along, drinking too much, picking fights. Then one morning I woke up in a jail cell in Denver and realized they would have hated seeing me that way." He met her gaze. "The people we lose live on in how we choose to honor their memory, not in how long we mourn." His words struck a chord deep within Zara, forcing her to examine the grief she'd been carrying. Was she honoring Henry by remaining frozen in sorrow, or was there a way to move forward while keeping his memory sacred? The following Sunday, 6 weeks after Logan's accident, he was finally well enough to ride again. Without discussion, he arrived at Zara's ranch as he had before, though his movements were still careful, his dismount from his horse more deliberate. They worked side by side in companionable silence, replanting a section of her garden that had been trampled by a wayward cow. The domesticity of the moment wasn't lost on either of them, nor was the way their hands occasionally brushed, lingering longer each time. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the yard, Logan finally spoke the words that had been building between them. "I care for you, Zara, more than as a friend." His voice was steady, though she could see the vulnerability in his eyes. "I know it hasn't been long since Henry passed, and I'd never presumed to replace him, but I need you to know how I feel." Zara's heart raced, fear and hope warring within her. "Logan, you don't need to answer now," he interrupted gently. "I just wanted my intentions to be clear. I respect you too much for anything less than honesty." Before she could respond, the sound of approaching riders drew their attention. 3 men on horseback were coming up the road to her property, none of whom Zara recognized. Logan tensed, instinctively moving slightly in front of Zara. "You expecting company?" "No," she replied, apprehension building as the riders drew closer. The men reined in their horses in the yard, dust billowing around them. The leader, a hard-faced man with a scar running along his jaw, spoke first. "Mrs. Zimmerman, I'm Jacob Harlow. These are my associates, Mr. Decker and Mr. Quinn." He didn't dismount or remove his hat. "I represent the Western Pacific Railroad Company. I'm here to discuss purchasing your property." Zara straightened her spine. "I've already declined offers for my ranch, Mr. Harlow." "Perhaps you didn't understand the generous nature of our proposal." Harlow's smile didn't reach his eyes. $500 for the entire parcel, that's more than fair." Logan stepped forward. "The lady said she's not interested." Harlow's gaze shifted to Logan, assessing him coldly. "And you are a friend who thinks you should respect the lady's decision." Tension crackled in the air as the men stared each other down. Finally, Harlow reached into his coat pocket and withdrew an envelope. "Our final offer is inside, Mrs. Zimmerman. The railroad's coming through this valley whether you like it or not. All your neighbors have sold. You'd be wise to do the same." He tossed the envelope to the ground. "We'll be back in a week for your answer." As the men rode away, Zara trembled with a mixture of anger and fear. $500 is half what this land is worth. They know I'm alone and think they can intimidate me." Logan picked up the envelope, his expression grim. "These railroad men play rough. Is it true about your neighbors selling? The Hendersons sold last month." "I heard the Clarks were considering it." She wrapped her arms around herself. But this land was Henry's dream, our dream. What would Henry want for you now? Logan asked gently. To struggle alone out of loyalty to a dream or to find happiness? The question lingered between them as the sun dipped below the horizon. Zara found herself wondering the same thing. What would Henry want? The answer came with surprising clarity. He would want her to live, not just exist in the shadow of his memory. That night, after Logan reluctantly departed with a promise to return the next day, Zara sat on her porch, watching the stars emerge. For the first time, she spoke aloud to Henry as if he could hear her. "I think I'm ready to let go," she whispered. "Not of you, never of you, but of the pain. There's someone who understands loss, someone who helped me when others judged me." Tears slipped down her cheeks, but they weren't the same desperate tears of before. "I think you'd like him, Henry. He's honorable, kind." The night breeze rustled the cottonwood trees, carrying away her words. Zara closed her eyes, and for the first time in months, her heart felt lighter. The week that followed brought increasing pressure from the railroad men. They visited neighboring properties, spreading rumors that Zara was being unreasonable and holding up progress. Some townsfolk began to give her cold looks in church, believing she was standing in the way of Millcreek's growth and prosperity. "You can't let them bully you," Logan insisted when he found her in tears after a particularly difficult trip to town. "But you also need to decide what's truly important to you." "I don't know what to do," Zara admitted. This land was everything to Henry, but is it worth fighting the entire town? "The railroad," Logan took her hands in his. "Whatever you decide, I'll stand with you, but it needs to be your choice, not made out of fear or obligation to the past." His support gave Zara the courage to face Harlow when he returned with his men the following week. This time, they weren't alone. Sheriff Mills accompanied them, along with several townsfolk, including Mrs. Pettigrew and Reverend Simmons. "We've come for your answer, Mrs. Zimmerman," Harlow announced, his tone making it clear what answer he expected. Zara stood on her porch, Logan a reassuring presence beside her. She looked at the faces of her neighbors, some sympathetic, others impatient or judgmental. Then she looked at the land stretching around her, the home she'd shared with Henry, and finally at Logan, whose steady gaze offered strength without pressure. "I've decided to sell," she said clearly, causing murmurs of approval from the gathered crowd. Then she added, "But not for $500. The fair market value is $1,000 and I won't accept a penny less." Harlow's face darkened. "That's not the offer on the table." "Then there's no deal," Zara replied, surprising herself with her steadiness. "And before you try to threaten me, you should know I've already written to the territorial governor about your tactics. Sheriff Mills has a copy of the letter." The sheriff, who'd been watching the exchange with interest, nodded confirmation. "I do indeed, Mr. Harlow, along with statements from other landowners about certain strong-arm methods employed by your men." A tense silence followed. Logan shifted slightly, his hand moving closer to the gun at his hip. Finally, Harlow broke into a cold smile. $900. Final offer. Zara pretended to consider. $950, and I'll need 30 days to relocate." After a moment's hesitation, Harlow nodded curtly. "Done. We'll draw up the papers tomorrow." As the crowd dispersed, Logan turned to Zara with admiration in his eyes. "You never cease to amaze me." "I surprised myself," she admitted. "But it felt right. Henry would understand this wasn't giving up, it was moving forward. What will you do now?" Logan asked, the question laden with unspoken meaning. Zara took a deep breath. "I was thinking of starting fresh. Maybe in a place where I'm not just poor widow Zimmerman to everyone. Any particular place in mind? That depends." She gathered her courage. on whether a certain cowboy might be interested in a fresh start too. Logan's face broke into a smile that transformed his features. Are you proposing to me, Zara Zimmerman? I'm suggesting that two people who understand loss might find happiness together, she replied, her cheeks flushing. If that's something you'd want. In answer, Logan stepped forward, cupping her face in his hands. I've wanted it since the day I wiped away your tears in that cemetery. This time, when he leaned down, there was no interruption. His lips met hers in a kiss that felt like coming home and setting out on an adventure all at once. Zara wound her arms around his neck, letting herself be swept away by the feeling of rightness, of belonging when they finally parted, both breathless. Logan rested his forehead against hers. Cry with me, laugh with me, build a life with me, he whispered. That's all I ask. Yes, Zara answered simply. To all of it. 6 months later, on a bright spring morning, Zara stood beside Logan in Millcreek's small church. Her dress was blue instead of black, and wildflowers adorned her hair. The same townsfolk who had once judged her tears now smiled approvingly as Reverend Simmons pronounced them husband and wife. Before they left town for good, bound for a small ranch Logan had purchased near Denver, they visited the cemetery together. Zara placed flowers on Henry's grave, while Logan did the same at a small marker they'd commissioned for Caroline and Emma. Thank you, Zara said, not just to the memory of her first husband, but to the man standing beside her, for teaching me that grief and joy can exist in the same heart. And thank you, Logan replied, taking her hand, for reminding me that the bravest thing isn't hiding our tears, but sharing them with someone who understands. As they rode away from Millcreek, toward their new beginning, Zara felt a sense of peace settle over her. The past would always be part of their story, but it no longer defined her future. That future, bright with promise and possibility, waited just beyond the horizon, hand in hand with a man who had wiped away her tears and taught her to cry, and laugh, and love again.